Hello everyone, this is lecture 2 of module 1 in the series of lectures that I'll be delivering to cover the software project management course at the Department of Software Engineering, Faculty of Computer and Information Technology, Jordan University of Science and Technology. This lecture will introduce the project management phases. A project management typically comes in 5 phases. Initiation phase, a planning phase, execution phase, monitoring and control phase, and closure phase. As we see here, things start with the initiation phase, it moves to the planning phase, then from the planning phase it moves to the execution phase, and back and forth with the monitoring and control phase, and at the end the closure phase. We'll come to these phases in details in this lecture. Now with the initiation phase, it has two folds. It starts at the customer side and then it moves to the service provider side. At the customer side, the idea would be introduced by one of the employees or the managers at the customer side to come up with a new system or to upgrade an existing system. For example, upgrading the current registration and admission system at JUST. The first thing they would do, the customer would do, is to define the business and system requirements for that system. Then compile those requirements into a request for a proposal, an RFP. The RFP would be shared with service providers either by inviting them directly or by running a public ad advertising the project opportunity. Service providers become aware of the business opportunity or the project opportunity at the customer side. From there, we move to the service provider side. The service provider would attempt to obtain a legitimate copy of the RFP from the customer. The service provider would conduct a high-level study and analysis of the RFP to define or to extract the requirements, the terms of conditions, etc., into a project charter, which is an executive summary of the project opportunity. The project charter then would be introduced or presented to the upper management at the service provider side, and that upper management would make a decision whether yes, proceed or no. If they decide to proceed with the project opportunity in hand, then they move to the planning phase. Now with the planning phase, we start at the service provider side. The service provider would assign a project manager for the project opportunity in hand. Then a detailed study of the RFP would be conducted to define the requirements and terms of conditions of the project, and that would be translated into a work breakdown structure, as we will explain later on in module 3. Then the schedule would be added, where each task would be given a start and end date, as well as the project would have a start and end date. Tasks dependencies would be taken care of during the scheduling. Then resources would be allocated. In other words, each task would be assigned to a resource or a member of the project team. Deliverables and milestones would be defined at this stage, and basically that takes us into a core project action plan. So the core component of the project plan is enhanced now, is defined. Then we add the list of processes on the top of the core project action plan in order to achieve the complete project action plan. These processes include, but not limited to, the quality assurance and control process, the change management process, risk management process, other processes. There might be many others like team management, team building, financial management process, etc., correspondence process, and so forth. Once we have all these processes in addition to the core project action plan, then we can say that now we have a complete action plan for the project. Then we can develop or derive a proposal, both technical and financial, and submit that proposal to the customer. Now, at the customer side, things start with evaluating all the received proposals by an authorized committee at the customer side. And as a result, the customer would shortlist the preferred service providers or the preferred proposals. Those would be invited individually to come and deliver presentations and discuss their proposals with the customer. One of them will be indeed selected to be the preferred service provider, and that service provider would receive a letter of awarding from the customer, inviting them or inviting the service provider to come and start negotiating a contract with the customer. Once the contract is negotiated and finalized, then the customer and the selected service provider would sign their contract. So the outcome of the planning phase is the contract itself. Once we have the contract in hands, we move to the execution phase. With this execution phase, the project manager must double check a few things just to make sure that things are going the right way. For example, the project generic description must be consistent with that description that was provided originally in the RFP. Same with the project objectives and the anticipated outcomes. The terms and conditions, including the service level agreement, the SLA, the team correspondence process, the team performance evaluation process, the contract management process, the change management process, the subcontractors management process, and the project accounting process as well, the contract compliance and governance process. So all these should be there, should be ready for use during the execution of the project. Then the project manager must take care of the following. He must hold a kickoff meeting to start the project, where all involved parties should be invited to that meeting to brief everyone on the project, the requirements, the proposed solution, etc., the schedule, and so on. Then the project manager should make all logistical arrangements and infrastructure preparations for the project. He or she should mobilize and allocate his or her team, project team. Then the project should be executed by whom? By the project team members, and all that should be supervised and managed by the project manager. The project manager would be compiling weekly progress and monitoring reports, compiling reports on the periodical accomplishments and milestones, compiling periodical reports on the issues, risks, etc., and compiling the final report on the project execution. Now, with the monitoring and control phase, which comes after the execution, however, we should say that the monitoring part goes hand in hand or in parallel with the execution. It's very much a quality assurance to double check on every task once it is completed. The control entirely comes after the execution phase. So the monitoring process, as I explained, it comes in parallel or runs in parallel with the execution phase. Then the objective of the monitoring is that each task is completed or it was completed as expected. The control phase, it runs after the completion of the execution phase and has two parts: functional testing and non-functional testing. The functional testing is very much to make sure that the functions operate correctly, so the outcomes are correct and precise. The non-functional testing has to do with the quality factors, where when we measure for each quality factor using the quality matrix specified for that factor, the results would be as wanted. Such factors would include performance, reliability, availability, scalability, maintainability, testability, safety, etc., etc. We will come to these later on in more details. The closure phase. Now, the closure phase, the project manager must take care of the following: preparing a checklist of all deliverables, handing the deliverables over to the customer, and then submit the final invoice to the customer, train the users from the customer side, then give the customer a warranty period, let's say 2 weeks up to 3 months, and the warranty very much the service provider would be responsible for fixing any problem in the code once it is discovered and identified by the customer after they start using the system. And then the project will be signed off, and if there is a need to continue supporting the project by the service provider, then the customer has to sign a separate contract for technical support with the customer. And that's all for lecture 2. Be looking forward to meeting with you at lecture 3. Thank you.